Thank you. Well, hello everyone. Hope you're having a nice evening. I just want to welcome you all to tonight's program and a very special announcement by the Sorel organization. And this is all being hosted by the School of Music. As you know, the Fredonia School of Music is among the top 50 music programs in this country. It is powered by outstanding and dedicated faculty and staff and attracts talented and remarkable students each year. We are very proud of the School of Music for its many achievements, including 100% job placement of its graduates. The success of the School of Music is driven by many wonderful things, including impactful partnership, such as the one we have with the Sorel organization. This afternoon, I had the privilege of meeting with Wendy Persons and Walter Coleman of the Sorel organization. Wendy and Walter, we are glad to have you with us tonight. At this time, it is my pleasure to present to you Dr. David A. Stringham, the Dean of the School of Music, for some remarks. Dr. Stringham is completing his first year. As a matter of fact, I think he told me Wednesday would be his first anniversary. So don't forget to congratulate him for being very successful during his first year. He joined Fredonia from James Madison University. His doctorate degree in music education is from the University of Rochester. Please help me welcome Dean Stringham.
Thank you. Good evening. As Dr. K mentioned, my name is Dave Stringham. I have the honor of serving as Dean here at the School of Music at SUNY Fredonia. Thank you to all of you for being here in the room tonight, and also to those who are joining us via live stream. We're glad you're here for this exciting event. As we do more than 300 times a year at this School of Music, we gather around music. Tonight it's the music of iconic composer, flutist, and entrepreneur Valerie Coleman. Ms. Coleman is with us this weekend in the second installment of her Surrell Visiting Artist Residency. Our students and faculty this week have had the opportunity to learn from and work alongside one of our most distinctive living composers, thanks to the generosity of the Elizabeth and Michelle Sorel Charitable Organization, founded by Fredonia Professor Emerita and SUNY Distinguished Professor Claudette Sorel, in memory of her parents. Over the past 16 years, our School of Music has richly benefited from our relationship with the Surrell organization and from their generous support, which has provided so many things I need a list: a scholarship fund, this recital hall's primary Steinway concert grand piano, affectionately nicknamed Claudette, an 8-year run of the Claudette Sorel piano competition, and a 3-year visiting artist residency, which, as you can read in your program, brought Dr. Chen Yi to our campus last year, Ms. Coleman this year, and next year will afford us the chance to host Pulitzer Prize and 3-time Grammy Award-winning composer Jennifer Higdon. We're very, very fortunate tonight to have Managing Director of the Sorel organization and Fredonia alumna, Ms. Wendy Persons, and Mr. Walter Kilmer, President of the Sorel organization, here with us this evening. Please join me in thanking them and welcoming them to the stage to share some remarks.
It's so good to be here. Thank you so much. And it's such a thrill to be here tonight to be with Valerie Coleman, who's so extraordinary, and to welcome her as the Sorel visiting artist. And I was kind of wondering, does Valerie Coleman even know who was Claudette Sorel? You know, and how many of you who are new students to the campus know? You might have heard this name. Who's Claudette Sorel? You know, she was a child prodigy pianist. She emigrated before World War II with her parents from France and came to the United States to study. And she was just an extraordinary prodigy. She grew into an internationally renowned concert pianist and then became an educator. And among her educational opportunities, she ended up here at Fredonia for many years, chairing the piano faculty and becoming New York State's first in the SUNY system female ever distinguished university professor. We have more here now at the college, male and female distinguished professors, but Claudette was the first back in 1969. And so she was always a passionate advocate for women in music. I was like one of the lucky people to study with her, this formidable, tiny, formidable presence. And she was just passionate about women having more opportunity in music. We are, after all, half of humanity. But are half of the performers, are half of the composers, are half of the conductors women? And so she set up a foundation in 1996 to try to move things forward in a more equitable fashion for women in music. And she named it in memory of her parents, Elizabeth and Michelle Sorel Charitable Organization. And here's what she set out to do when it became a nonprofit foundation. She outlined all the stuff she wanted to do. She said the primary purpose would be the promotion and advancement of female musicians in the fields of performance, conducting, composition, management, technology, and scholarship. And she wanted to conduct workshops and conferences and performances and to be a research center. And unfortunately, she didn't have time. She died 3 years later at the age of 66 in 1999. And so the Surrell Organization Board of Directors, Walter's been on the board since the very beginning, carried on this work to carry Claudette Sorel's torch and to give grants to help women musicians advance in their careers. And for many years under our dear friend Judy Cope, who was here, my predecessor, and she gave the first grants to Fredonia of the scholarship and Claudette, the piano, and the piano competition, which Eleron Avni has run so brilliantly for the past 8 years. But we have news tonight, and you are the first to hear it. Because after a lot of careful consideration, the trustees of the Sorel organization have decided that the best way that we can carry on Claudette Sorel's mission is to give all our money away and to set up endowment funds where others can carry on this mission to make a more equitable world for women musicians forever in perpetuity. And what better place to do all the things that she set out to do than a music school? All of those different aspects. And what better place, what better music school than Fredonia, where she taught? And where, right? Yeah. And where, not so coincidentally, Fredonia houses the Institute for Composer Diversity, headed by Professor Rob Deemer. Claudette Sorel was particularly interested in composers and conductors. She felt these are measurable areas of change. We can see the progress we're making by how many women are on the podium and how many women have scores that are on the music stands. And so tonight, Sorel Organization Board President Walter Kilmer and I are pleased to announce that we have a check for $350,000. To give to you to establish the Claudette Sorel Endowment for Women in Music here at Fredonia's School of Music. And Walter has more news.
Thank you, Wendy. I simply wish to add how honored all of us at Surrell have been to work with SUNY Fredonia and the School of Music. And Fredonia had a special place in Claudette's career. It was really the capstone of her career, a distinguished career as a musician. And so this is a natural place for us to focus our work, but also because we know that SUNY Fredonia and the School of Music share our commitment to creating opportunity and promoting excellence. And so in the spirit of that shared mission, in addition to the $350,000 that we have given to Fredonia to establish an endowment in Claudette's name, we have made an additional pledge to be paid later this year of $250,000 that will bring the endowment to $600,000.
The stage now to get on with the main event and really the main reason that you are all here. But I just want to do just a very quick personal thanks to June Miller-Spann, who is here from the Fredonia College Foundation, who has, with passion and energy and commitment, guided our support and helped us give in a way that makes sense for you all as students and what we can do for you as you're learning here through our grants. And June, you are just spectacular, and I just also want to say that you've brought this prodigal Zippy back into the fold as well. So I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Well, thank you to Wendy and to Walter and the Surrell organization for that terrific announcement. And the evening can only get better from here. Please help me welcome the main event for the evening, Professor Valerie Coleman.
So happy and pleased to see so many wonderful faces tonight sharing this evening with me, which is going to be about a background and also a few tunes in collaboration with both students and faculty here. So it's quite a thrill. I want to thank all of you so much for bringing me out, the Claudette Sorel Foundation. Really, it's an important job that you guys are doing, important advocacy. And as we champion the works of women artists and the performances of women artists, that kind of diversity is really expanding what living, breathing classical music can be. So I'm really thrilled about that, and here we are. I'd like to introduce to you a dear friend of mine who's going to start the program with the flute solo piece that I wrote very, very early on, shortly after I finished my second degree. And this piece is all about, for solo flute, is all about the power of a woman in comparison to a butterfly, in particular, the painted lady butterfly. And this poem, there's a poem that goes along with it that caught my attention. It's by a Chicagoan poet who lived around the time of the Great Depression, and her name was Margaret Danner. And so she wrote this poem talking about, well, I'll read it to you, and you can figure it out for yourself. Read between the lines. It goes like this. The painted lady is a small African butterfly, gaily toned, deep tan or peach, that seems as delicate and tremulous and sheer as the objects I treasure. Yet, this butterfly can cross the seas, the icy seas, in the trail of the big boats to France. Mischance is as wide and somber gray as the lake here in Chicago. Is there strength enough in my peach paper rose or lavender sea-laced fan? And so there's a lot of color, there's a lot of imagery to that poetry, which made it my job of writing the music a whole lot easier. And so you see I have my flute out here, but I'm going to actually call upon my dear friend, longtime friend, roommate, we also went to the same school together, Assistant Professor Barry Crawford, Assistant Professor of Flute. Now, every good story needs a PowerPoint presentation, so that's what we're going to do. I'll wait till we get that up. So, you know that I'm a flutist and a composer as well, and this is one of many different pathways that is afforded to us as artists. Actually, an infinite number. You decide what kind of path you want to take. For me, I was born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky, and this is what you see up here is 3 buildings, one after the other. My father died when I was 9 years old, but before he had passed away, he had purchased those 3 buildings. The building that's in purple is called Kittyland Daycare. It's a daycare center in the middle of what is known to be a high crime area, but this daycare has been in business for over 60 years, unfortunately closed down by the pandemic. And basically, if you go 2 blocks north, which is that way according to the picture, and 3 blocks west is where Muhammad Ali was born. And if you go the opposite direction, about 5 blocks, that was where Breonna Taylor was shot and killed. So this neighborhood has a lot of history, a lot of character, but also a lot of issues. And when my father passed away, my mom, she picked up and she went back to school. She learned how to run a business. And I'm not kidding you when I say that there were many a crack baby that she rehabilitated, nursed back to health, and helped to raise. So she was a matron figure in the neighborhood. And what you don't see is the backyard area, which was a place where the kids would roam free and use their imagination and play around and things like that. But she wanted to make sure that each child had an opportunity to be exposed to the arts, to be exposed to all the different disciplines that could potentially become a vocation. She wanted to see where kids, their interests were, and help them along. And so for me, what you don't see is that in our house we had this old rickety keyboard. And a part of the playtime that me and my sisters had was to improvise on this keyboard. Now that sounds real fancy and all, but truth be told, any kid gets in front of a piano or a keyboard is going to be absolutely mesmerized by the sounds and all the possibilities. So after a while, I decided to write down all the things that I was creating. Did not know how to read music or anything like that, but you know, when you don't read music, you do the best you can. You create symbols, circles, dots, squares, all of those things. And that was how I got started. And in the evenings in the backyard, I would sit and watch the sun go down and listen to the radio, the classical music station, and listen to these guys who were heavy influencers in my life. So I know a lot of these pictures, if not all of them, look familiar. So I would love for you guys to yell out who you see that's familiar to you. And okay, right down here at the lower corner, who's that? Yes, and the lower right-hand corner? James Galway, okay. And then this person. Oh, it took you a moment. That's right. Muhammad Ali grew up in that area of town, grew up in my neighborhood, was a fixture, or rather his father was a fixture. He was a painter. He painted houses, but he also painted murals. He was known as the artiste. And so we grew up knowing his family. I never met him, but my mom knew his family. The one thing I didn't realize was that later on in life, Muhammad Ali was a deeper influence than I recognized. His resilience, his grit, his ever-ending sense of renewable hope is something that resonates within me to this very day, and for that I am grateful to him. My mom, going back to her, being the most incredible person I know, wanted to make sure that I got an education in music. And so somehow or another, I ended up getting flute lessons, but even on Saturdays, I would go to what is in the lower left-hand corner here, which is called the Youth Performing Arts Center, and it's also a school. But on Saturday, it was the Louisville Youth Orchestra held its sessions. And so that was where everything just really kind of came together, to play in an orchestra, to be around musicians of like mind who love Beethoven's Pastoral Symphony and all of these other wonderful repertorial pieces that we learned over time. And so one Saturday, I was approached by one of the staff members, and that person said, "Valerie, we'd like for you to play for a particular gentleman. He's in that room. Why don't you go ahead and just come out of the orchestra and play for him?" And so I didn't know it at the time, but he was the director of the Boston University Tanglewood Institute. And so I came in and I played for him a concerto that I had learned. And 2 weeks later, I got an email, or not an email, a letter. Back then it wasn't an email. And it was, congratulations, you have a full scholarship to attend the BUTI, Boston University Tanglewood Institute. And so that middle panel right there is the first time I stepped outside of Louisville, Kentucky. I can say Louisville. You guys know what I mean when I say Louisville. And it was a game changer. For some reason, I thought I was a really great flutist, but when I got there, I realized I had a lot of work to do. But when I arrived, I came with a trunk full of music, of staff paper that I had, with a typewriter, had printed out, and just a trunk load of music for all of these new colleagues that were in front of me, that I could engage them and just see how the music is going to be put together according to them. And so it was during that time, in the flute seminar, the class that I was taking, Dorio Dwyer, flutist of the Boston Symphony Orchestra at the time, was the person running it. And we were so terrified of her. She would ask us to come up and play, and then she would immediately rip us apart, but in the best way. As teenagers, we didn't really quite understand the tough love that she was providing us, but we learned so much now that I look back. One pivotal moment was when I decided to bring up one of the trios that I had written, and two of my friends, newfound friends, we got up on the stage and we played this trio. When we were done, she was silent for a minute, and she said, "Okay, let's break this down." And she started to treat the music as if it was real, as if it were Brahms, or as if it were an etude or a concerto. And that validation, she spent the whole time, the rest of the session, on this piece of music, teaching us how to interpret my work. And that was beyond validation. That sent me the signal, I can do this and be a composer, create music. There's something here. By the way, she was the first woman to be in a major symphony orchestra. So I think maybe she saw something in me that she wanted to advocate and nurture. And it wasn't long after that, I actually went to school at the University of Kentucky for a semester. And I studied flute there, but then realized that I was not allowed to learn music composition. And so I transferred out of there as quickly as possible and went to Boston University. And before I go into the Boston University story, I'd like to welcome two dear friends, a wonderful student of Barry Crawford's and also Barry himself. We're going to play a trio for you. I don't have the trio from yesteryear. It's somewhere in that trunk that I still have. But rather, this trio is something that is has been written within the past decade. So here we go. Guys, why don't you come on out? She learned this piece in 2 days. Where were we? So I decided to transfer to Boston University to do a double degree in flute performance and music composition. I remember my very first composition lesson ever was at this school. I brought in a full-length orchestral work, and after the teacher looked through it, took a side, leaned back, and said, "You will not have a career in music composition." He then proceeded to kick me out of the program. And so I actually fought it. I came too far. And I was reinstated back into the school in music composition and flute performance, right back where I left off. And it was during that time that I noticed that I was the only woman there, and I was the only person of color as well. And after 5 years, I got my degree, but I walked out of that place feeling like there is no real place for me within that vocation. I was still writing music, but no way could one call themselves a composer if they did not feel like they belonged. So I moved to New York City. And it was during that time that I realized, for my master's degree, sitting in a little room of a sublet, that I could not figure out what I was going to do in terms of pay rent, in terms of paying back any student loans and things like that. And so the name Imani Wins popped into my head at that time. The name gave me the courage to find 4 others that were like me, who were interested in seeing where music could go within the lens of the African diaspora. And so I asked around, and each person was recommended to me, and I gave them cold phone calls. "You don't know me, but I have this idea of a group. Here's my vision. Would you be willing to sit down to read?" And I don't know how it happened, but luckily they all did. And we sat in a practice room at Manhattan School of Music, everyone except for Jeff Scott, who is in the background there. There was another gentleman who was a freelancer, and he was on Broadway. And we sat down and read for the very first time, and it was magical. We read through the toughest wind quintet piece, to my knowledge at the time, and I thought it was just the most wonderful thing. Meanwhile, they were looking at their watches like, what time is it? When are we going to leave from this? And after that rehearsal, I realized that in order to make this dream a reality, goals have to be set, goals that we can work towards. And so I said, guys, why don't we start a concert series? Admittedly, I used my student loan money to rent out a church at 69th and Broadway. And the horn player at the time, like I said, who was on Broadway, said, I'm not really into learning any music if you don't pay me. So, but I know of this gentleman who is a single guy, and you guys are 4 single women, so he might be interested in playing. And so I reached out to Jeff Scott, and little did he know that he would end up adopting or inheriting 4 sisters that would nag him on the road for years to come. He learned to bring 2 things with him, chocolate and a bottle of wine. The bottle of wine was for him to get through. The chocolate was for us to get along. So during that time, we were still very much students, and part of our goal was to do different competitions. And I'll get into that in a minute, but I'm now queued up to a performance. Instead of seeing Imani Wins play on the screen, which I know we'd all love, I'd like to actually welcome a wonderful wind quintet that I've been working with over the time that I've been here. They actually learned this piece in 3 weeks. So guys, why don't you come on out to play this piece? It's called Red Clay and Mississippi Delta. This work, while they get set up, I'll tell you all about it. Imani Wins was rehearsing. Oh, yes. Come on out. And I apologize, guys, because in this time that we worked together, we were grooving and dancing on the stage as we were rehearsing together. But I never really told you what the piece was about. This work came about after a rehearsal that the group had. We were arguing furiously, and it was over some kind of interpretational thing. And with Imani Wins at the time, we were putting the fun in dysfunctional. So when I came back, I was so flustered about our argument. All of a sudden, the melody started popping in my head, and by 2 days later, the piece was written over the weekend, and Monday morning came around for our 10 to 1 p.m. and then 2 to 5 p.m. rehearsal. I had this in tow. Red Clay, Mississippi Delta is all about dysfunctional families, but specifically partially about Imani Wins, but also about my family on my mom's side who hails from Mississippi. And my relatives have the skin tone that is as if they were born of the red clay itself. And so you think of the riverboats, the juke joints, the blues, all of these things. And I thought, why not create an American scherzo based on the blues and all of these wonderful aspects? So I'm going to sit down and let you guys take it away. there's nothing like chamber music. Don't you agree? Gosh. Chamber music teaches leadership, it teaches communication, all of these things. They've inspired me, and I'm just very happy. So with Imani Winds, coming back to that, I hope this energy you guys just felt that energy. We decided to create goals for ourselves beyond the concert series. We started off, and some of you may know this from our talk yesterday, that the concert series started off with 2 people in the audience. And by the end of the year, it was a full house. And I remember distinctively with flyers in hand, standing on the corner of 69th Street and Broadway, handing out flyers for the concert that evening. And somehow or another, people just started to come out to our events. But then we realized it's not enough to have a concert series and use up my student loan money doing that, but rather to go ahead and do competitions. And so we decided to do Concert Artists Guild. There was one called Artists International, which gave a Carnegie Hall debut. The Fishoff Chamber Music Association, which is a competition that is still going on to this very day. And the prize money and all the opportunities that come from participating in that one has grown over the years to tours, management, and also the Bowers program at Chamber Music Society of Lincoln Center, meant for young artists who are ready to be launched into the field. And so we auditioned for these. We won some, we lost some. But one thing was certain. Being out there taking these auditions put us in a position to receive different opportunities from each one of these programs. Concert Artists Guild, we actually was one of the finalists, but we didn't technically win. But they came to us and they said, we see the chemistry, we see the dedication that you guys have. We'd like to bring you on to our management roster as the first residency ensemble. And so we said, what does that mean? Does it mean that we don't get a chance to play recitals, or we're just basically going out to schools and doing performances? Is that it? They said, no, actually, we're looking at the trend within the industry of classical music, and that is to reach out and build audiences more and more. So what this means for you is that you're not only going out into the community and performing, but you're also getting the main stage concerts. We said, we're in. And so from that moment on, over the years, it built up, but it got to a point where we were traveling 300 days out of the year touring. And it was during that time I was very much writing for the group, and I didn't realize it at the time until a reviewer came to, printed something in the paper and referred to me as a composer. And all of a sudden, this label, this thing, this validation came in the form of a review, which is a very dangerous thing, but nonetheless, it made me get a second look at the music that I had written for the group. Over the time, we toured. I was writing more music for the group, selling my sheet music, on a little table outside of the concerts that I printed on my old printer, Bessie. And over time, we realized that we were making a lot of wonderful connections and making all sorts of wonderful friends. And we decided to start a chamber music festival because of that. And so I went to, of all places, because thinking big is something that we should all embrace fearlessly, I went to Juilliard and I said, we want to start a summer festival here. And they said, tell me more. And over the course of the year, I brought to them a proposal, and we worked, Imani Winds and the Juilliard Admissions Office worked on creating a proposal. Unfortunately, it didn't pan out. They wanted us to have a certain age group, and we wanted to work with wind quintet, older groups, such as this wonderful group that we just heard. And they said, well, it's not quite what we're looking for our recruitment. However, we'll give you a discount in rental. And you cover the insurance and, we're on. And so we agreed to that. And the very first year, we had 70 people attend. And so what you're looking at is our very first year of this particular festival, which has now been in session since 2010. And the applicant roster, the number of applicants has increased to 300. And you can see the little marquee there at Lincoln Center. So I'm very proud of that particular thing. But as life goes on, we got older. We had children. And it wasn't until I realized that in holding my newborn that my road with Imani Winds will soon be coming to an end because I wanted to see my daughter grow up. But even so, writing music started to really embrace my desire to write music started to really come to the fore all the more. And so touring and writing sometimes doesn't completely mix. So I decided to retire from Imani Winds. Up in the right-hand corner, you'll see us in the dead of winter in Wisconsin, in a romper room mobile, a rental car that just had 3 of our children with us. And up in the right-hand corner, the left-hand corner is my daughter's first birthday, and so you see the kids there. And then at the bottom, when I decided to retire from Imani Winds, the most wonderful, wonderful blessing happened. The group was not able to find a flutist, but after a while, we talked about it, and we recognized that whenever a chamber music group changes members or loses a member, it's not the end. You evolve. It's a trigger to evolve and grow and take on new characteristics. And therefore, the person who is sitting in the flute chair should not be me, but should be someone who brings a fresh look at the ensemble, new interpretation, a new sound. And so I'm so glad that Brandon Patrick George came along right at that moment, at that decisive moment. And he is a rock star, and he's been with the group ever since. And you see in this picture, members old and new, Mark Dover on clarinet, and one person that's not in the photo is Kevin Newton, who is a horn player extraordinaire, an amazing singer too. So that's what happened with Imani Winds. But when I left the group, another amazing thing happened. The Philadelphia Orchestra called, out of the blue. They said, Valerie, we've been following your career, and we see what you have done with a group, what composers can do when they have the opportunity to work with an ensemble over a long period of time, and how their art, their craft can develop. And so we'd like to do that with you. I just finished my 5th commission with the Philadelphia Orchestra, Concerto for Orchestra, as of this past weekend. Thank you. And it set things on a completely different path. And I'm so grateful for this path because as of recently, I also auditioned for a job, and it is a professorship at Juilliard. And so I'm now on the Juilliard composition faculty there too. Thank you. Normally, this is where we would play the video of the Philadelphia Orchestra playing 7 o'clock Shout, but please go to their website because they have a lot of archival videos, and you can see how chamber music is manifested in a large ensemble. Very powerful. What came after that was the pandemic, and it was during that time when orchestras started to really scramble about in order to keep their livelihood. And that's when all of a sudden a new revenue stream came to my household, and that was through the form of rentals and licensing. And my husband, who worked at a Fortune 500 company at the time, I had just finished my residency down at the University of Miami. he said, "Oh, you're getting a lot of things, Valerie. You're an enterprise here. Somebody's going to have to look out for these rentals and things." And so he did that, and it's been growing ever since. And now we've expanded to become a very much legit publishing company where we're publishing other composers who we feel are the voices, and the works who we feel are the voices of this time that are able to engage audiences. So you can see within a performer's career, there are many different revenue streams, there are many different aspects to the livelihood, not just performance and composing, but advocacy, right? Entrepreneurship, all of these things. And I want to encourage you as educators, as performers, do not feel afraid to dip your toe into all of these wonderful avenues. Do not feel like you need a full education in music business in order to start your own business. Believe it or not, when you set the dream, and you start to ask around, you gain not only wisdom, but you also gain people who see that you're interested in their craft, and they're eager to share it with you, and they're eager to mentor you as well, in hopes that you'll turn around and mentor somebody coming up as you become successful too. I'm going to end this program with a piece. It's kind of, normally I would try to end the program with something that is very lively, but I'm going to actually end a piece with something that is typically somber. It's called Requiem Milonga, and it was written during a time when a dear friend of mine had a breakup with her boyfriend, and the breakup happened over email. And I was writing, right? I was writing this piece, a different piece, and I realized from the scraps that were on the floor, that was something that I could give as a gift to her to help her feel better. But now I recognize it as a song of hope too. So as you're listening to what can be a sad song, I want you to look at the flip side of it, the hope and dreams that we can bring out together as artists. And so, Ife, I'm looking for you. We're gonna come on out. We're gonna play a flute and piano work called Requiem Milonga. Everyone is left, but could all the performers come out and get a round of applause for being a part of this program? I hope they didn't leave. If you perform, come on stage. Ife, come back. Tell them to come on out. Oh, they're probably all scrambled about. Let's just go ahead and give them a round of applause anyway.